Hello, and welcome to the virtual Eclipse Community Meetup. My name is Kat Hirsch. We're now on to day 2 of the Eclipse Oxygen webinar series. As mentioned briefly yesterday, this series will be comprised of 6 webinars over the course of 2 weeks as we lead up to the 12th annual Simultaneous Release, which will be taking place on June 28th, 2017, and is titled Eclipse Oxygen. So just a minor correction that I wanted to add as well. Yesterday I had a verbal typo and said it was the 15th simultaneous release. It's actually the 12th. So just wanted to make that clear before we move further. So if there are any questions or you'd like to do some more research on what is Eclipse Oxygen, you can visit eclipse.org/oxygen for more information. So to become a member of the virtual Eclipse Community Meetup, which is where you currently have found yourself, just follow the link in the bio of the video in the description below, and you should be able to get some good information on what the virtual Eclipse Community Meetup is all about. So during today's webinar, you can submit questions to the presenter in the chat box on the right-hand side of the live YouTube event. At the end of the presentation, we'll reserve 5 minutes to go through those questions with the presenter, and any outstanding questions that aren't answered can be emailed to marketing@eclipse.org. So now I will turn the stage over to Kaloyan Raev, who will be taking us through a great presentation today on PHP Development Tools, PDT 5.0 in Eclipse Oxygen.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you for the opportunity to present what's new in our project. So something that might be interesting to know to our audience is that PDT is already being developed at Eclipse for about 11 years. And this year we have pretty good new stuff, and I hope this session will be interesting to everyone. So have been involved with Eclipse for quite some years. I'm still counting them. I went through many projects, but lately I'm mostly active in PDT, DLTK, and Eclipse Che. I'm also the team lead of Zen Studio, which is a professional PHP IDE based on Eclipse PDT. Actually, most of the things that we are doing for this commercial product, we also contribute to the PDT open source project. So I'm going to do a very quick overview for those of you who are new to PDT. So PDT is a set of Eclipse plugins that make the Eclipse IDE to support PHP. The project always targeted support for the latest and greatest PHP version. It provides intellisense for PHP, like syntax highlighting, code completion, formatting, navigation in the code refactoring, and syntax validation. There is also a very nice debugging capabilities. You can do step debugging, and it's better to find the reason of your issues. It also has a very rich ecosystem of plugins, like other projects in Eclipse. This is a screenshot that I've tried to put as many features as possible on it, just to have a quick look at how it looks. So here we have a debug session. Actually, we have started a PHP unit test. This is actually one of the new features in PDT, the PHP unit support. We actually have a debug session for this PHP unit. We have stopped the execution at a breakpoint that you can see here in the editor. We also have here a window for the code completion that I have triggered. At the bottom, we see a view with the results of currently the progress of the PHP unit execution. And on the top right, we can also see that we can examine the variables that are currently at the execution stack. And we also can manage breakpoints, add expressions. We also have an outline of what we see in the PHP editor. So you can actually model a very sophisticated perspective in your IDE when you work with PHP code. So that was the quick overview. I hope it was enough for the very beginners. The takeaway is that you can have Eclipse as your PHP IDE for your daily work. So what's new now in PDT 5.0? We have quite a good list of improvements. First, we now support PHP 7.1, which is the latest PHP version available. We have integrated with the Composer dependency management tool. We also integrated with the PHPUnit testing framework. We added a profiler. We also have an integration with the built-in PHP server. Actually, this is a lightweight web server that comes with PHP itself. So this allows you to run your code as a web application without the need to install an additional web server. And we also introduced a very nice organizer for use statements, and we have some more little features that I'm also going to show. We're going to go deep in all of these new features in the next slides. So PHP 7.1. So this new version of PHP comes with some nice improvements in the language that can make coding cleaner. For example, there are nullable types, the void return type, there is an iterable pseudo type, a new visibility modifier for class constants, and more things like this. Here on the right side, I tried to make a screenshot of the PHP editor that shows some of these new features. For example, we have here the nullable type. You see this question mark on the return type, and this means that you can return the integer, like here 1, or you can return null. That's why it's nullable type. It can be an actual value or null. This was not possible in previous PHP versions. Now it's possible. New addition is this void return type here, which also makes sense for some use cases. At the bottom of the screenshot, we see the ability to catch multiple exception types. Here with this pipe character, you can actually add several exception types and have a common handling of the exception. So the support for PHP 7.1 in PDT means that your code editor will behave adequately with this new language constructs, and you won't see any surprising errors or things like this. The next thing is our integration with Composer. We actually, in the ecosystem of plugins that you can install on top of PDT, we had a Composer. Actually, we had 2 Composer plugins out there. One in the so-called PDT extension group, which is an open source project on GitHub that has plugins for Eclipse PDT, and also one with Zen Studio. So the people behind these 2 Composer plugins decided that it's now time to, at the end, we should have them merged in Eclipse PDT and have it out of the box with Eclipse, instead of people trying to find it and install it by themselves. So now we have this Composer integration natively in Eclipse PDT. It provides wizards for creating Composer project. Especially, you can create a Composer new PHP project from a Composer package that's available on packages. There is a very sophisticated form editor that helps you managing your PHP dependencies. We also have a source editor with a JSON IntelliSense. It's actually integrated with the JSON editor that was recently added to the WebTools platform. I'm not quite sure, maybe it was in Neon or it's in Oxygen. maybe it was in Neon, but we integrate the composer editor with this JSON editor, so we have a JSON IntelliSense also, and we have also a native and interactive console output embedded in the Eclipse IDE. Well, I have some screenshots here to present this in more details. So these are the two new wizards for new projects. So there is this empty composer project that just creates a PHP project with a default composer JSON file that you can start adding your dependencies from scratch, or you can use this PHP project from composer package that is actually helps you to find a project skeleton on Packagist, which is the central repository for composer packages, and start your project from such a project skeleton. This is particularly useful for PHP frameworks like Laravel, Symfony, Zen Framework, CodeIgniter, and so on. They have the project skeletons available on packages, and you can search them with this wizard and start your project from there. You can also here have some control. You have controls to select a specific version, and we also extract some info from packages like how many installs each package has and how many stars. This can help you to actually find the package you need. So for example, here it's quite obvious, and not only because of the name, but also because of the number of installs, that if I want to start a new Laravel project, I'll just pick this one that has these millions of installs. It's obvious that people start from this package and not from the next one. So about the native console output, you can see that here in this console view, we print the output of the composer commands. So the integration of composer on PDT acts like this. It calls directly the composer var. The composer integration is not implemented in Java, but it's calling the actual composer implementation in PHP that is available as a var package. And then we take the output from this external process that's launched by Eclipse, and we dump it in the console view. And this console view also embeds a native terminal view, and that's why we have this nice ANSI coloring. And here at the bottom, you can see that also we have a text-based progress displayed in this view. Not only this, but we can also have an interactive input from the user if that's necessary. There's some composer packages that can ask questions to the user on how to set up the project. So here we have an example that I'm setting up a Zend expressive skeleton. And this project skeleton has several questions asking the user here, for example, what type of installation do you want? Is it minimal, flat, or modular? And there is a default answer too, and I can actually enter number 3 if I want, and then hit enter, and this info goes to the project skeleton installer, and it continues the installation based on the user input. So here is also the form editor that we have for managing the dependencies. Here's an example of how I'm adding the monologue dependency to my Laravel project. So I can search for the package that I want in this search field. It will list me as a list of results. I can select the one that I want, and then on the bottom I can actually specify my version constraints. And we have handy buttons if you want to be compatible with the major version or with the minor version. And by default, I think it's the minor version. And we have also controls to make these constraints more specific if you want. The form editor is actually a multi-tab editor, and on the previous slide we were on this dependencies tab. We also have a source tab where we can view and edit the composer JSON file in a code editor. And as I said a few minutes ago, this code editor embeds the JSON editor, which also provides IntelliSense based on the JSON schema of the composer JSON file. So for example, here on this screenshot, we see the hover window. Here the mouse is hovered over the license key, and we see actually what's the description and type of this key, and this information comes from the composer JSON schema. The source editor also supports syntax validation based on the schema. For example, if you have a key that's not valid or a key that is missing, we will see a validation errors about this. It also provides code completion as well. So the next big feature in PDT 5.0 is the integration with PHPUnit. As you would expect, it provides the ability to execute PHPUnit tests. The supported setups, both if you have the PHPUnit framework as a dependency in your composer project, or it can be executed, the testing framework can be executed from a FAR package if your project is not based on composer. So both of these major use cases are supported. Also, if you have any specific configuration in your PHPUnit XML descriptor, it will be taken into account when the PHPUnit tests are executed. There is a nice results view to display the progress of the test execution and the overall status. There is also a trace failure view to analyze any test failures. Step debugging is supported, as well as profiling. About profiling, profiling is a new feature in PDT. I will explain it in a minute, but it's also integrated with PHPUnit, so you can also profile PHPUnit tests. And there are wizards for creating new test cases and new test suites, and of course there is IntelliSense for PHP in the code editor. So here is a typical view of the IDE when one is using the PHPUnit integration. So the first step is that using one of the ways for running an action in Eclipse, we choose to run the PHPUnit tests. Then the IDE will open this PHPUnit view where we can see the progress of the unit test execution and also the current state. So we have in this example, we have one test failing. So when we click on this failing test here on the right side, in the trace failure, we'll see the execution stack of the test at the point where it failed. And this will help us to find the exact place of the failure. So here we see that, okay, it reached the fail method in the testing framework. It was about an assertion rule. And here we also see that this in our context test PHP. And when we double click on this trace frame, it will actually open the exact place in the code editor, and I can very easily locate that this test actually failed on this assert null rule, and our contact guest first name is obviously not null because here the previous line we set the first name to Joe, which is not null. So it's easy to actually find where the tests are failing using the trace failure view. If that's not enough to actually find the reason for the failure, as you can see in my example, it's very easy to locate because in the previous line we see that we set the field to something that's not null, but that's a very synthetic use case. It's not a real one. Then in this case, we might need to do some actual debugging. And the debugging capabilities in PDT are also integrated with the PHPUnit framework. So we can actually run the PHPUnit tests in a debug session. And we can place breakpoints in our test cases. And when the execution reaches the breakpoint, the execution will break, and we will see the usual helper tools for debugging in our IDE. Like here we have the execution stack on the left side. On the right side, we can analyze the variables. We can also have the controls for step debugging. We can step over, step into, and so on. It's like executing a debug session for regular program execution. No difference for PHP unit tests as well. We also have, if you want to create new PHP unit tests, we have handy wizards for creating new test case and new test suites. And when you create a new test case or want to edit one, you need some IntelliSense for this. PHPUnit is integrated in the PHP IntelliSense in PDT. So here's an example with code completion. You can easily have access to all the utility methods of PHPUnit in your code editor. That's all for PHPUnit. The next one that I want to present is the profiler that we have added to PDT. So okay, so here the title is wrong, just a copy paste error. So this is an integration. This should say profiling capabilities in PDT, not integration with PHPUnit. We have already covered this. So the profiler provides the ability to do profiling, CPU profiling of code that is run as a PHP script or PHP web application or a PHPUnit tests. This profiling information comes from the debugger, and at the moment the profiler supports only XenDebugger. Perhaps you know that there are several debuggers for PHP. Two of the most popular ones are Xdebug and XenDebugger. So currently the profiler that we added to PDT is supporting only XenDebugger, but we already have a person in the mailing list who expressed interest to also implement integration with Xdebug, which would be really nice. And we'll see in the next months if this will actually happen. So what does the profiler gives you? So as I said, it does a CPU profiling of the code. So when you have some performance bottlenecks, you can use the profiler to hopefully help you to identify where the bottleneck is. I have some screenshots with an example of profiling execution of some PHPUnit tests. So when the execution ends, the profiler collects the profiling information and it's aggregated in this general profiling information with some chart about the time division. It displays the files or classes that took the most of the execution time. And on the next tabs that we see here, we can have a detailed information. example, here we have execution statistics about functions. There are a lot of controls here on the toolbar that you can actually see same statistic on classes, on PHP files. And it gives a lot of info. It's a really sophisticated tool, and but sometimes when you don't have other ways to see where your bottlenecks is, this detailed info can help you to actually find this place and search for solution. So here we can sort it by calls count. We can see the average on time, a lot of time executions. On another view, we also see the execution flow with the execution time in percentages. And we also have a view for the function invocation statistics. For example, for this getAlias method, we can see where it is invoked from, how many times this invocation took, and how many calls are made from these places. And this can help with our analysis. The next feature on the list is the built-in PHP server integration. So as I said, PHP, I think since version 5.4 comes with a lightweight web server inside the PHP package. So you can run it in a very easy way. Usually this is done from the command line. You can even debug it. And this doesn't require any additional installation of any LAMP stacks, XAMPP stacks, or Apache web servers. Just with the built-in PHP server, you can test, do some testing of your code. This is now integrated in PDT. We actually used the WTP server framework for this integration. So WTP stands for the Web Tools Platform, and it provides a framework for integrating servers for, I think, since the beginning of Eclipse. And usually it integrates Java-based servers, but we also use this framework to integrate the PHP built-in server. The integration supports both run and debug mode, so you actually can also do step debugging with the built-in server. And it also provides a configuration editor that you can configure some things like the HTTP ports where the built-in server to listen on. So here is a screenshot. At the bottom, we see the server's view with an instance of the built-in server and one project that is deployed there. At the top of the screenshot, we see the configuration editor. You can open it just by double-clicking on the server node in the server's view, and to open this editor. And here, for example, we can change the port, the HTTP port where the built-in server will listen on. Running code on this server is as easy as saying run us, run on server, or debug us, debug on server, and it will work. Now we're switching to the less, not that big changes in PDT. Not a big change, but still very useful when you're working on your code is the organizer for use statements. This is some validation rules. If you have, if the use statements in your PHP file, actually all of them are used, or you have some code that requires some use statement, but it's not declared. And for these validations, we have quick fixes for organizing or sorting the use statements. There is a shortcut Ctrl-Shift-O. For those of you who are familiar with the Java development tools, this is the same as like organizing package imports. Just use statements in PHP is similar to the package import in Java. And we also have quick fixes for removing unused use statements and adding the undeclared use statements. I have a couple of screenshots about this. Here we have an example of the unused use statements. This is our PHP file, and we have here a validation warning that this use statement is actually never used in our code. And we have two quick fixes suggested, either to organize all use statements or to remove this particular use statement. On my second screenshot, we have another example where we're missing the use statements for the test case class. And here we have quick fixes with the possible use statements that we can use. In our use case, we need to use the fourth one. I actually here missed the use statement from the PHPUnit framework. And I can quickly add it just by clicking on this quick fix. We also have quite some little changes that I also want to present. We have wizards for PHP classes, interfaces, and traits. These wizards are focused more to the beginners with the PHP development. Defining new PHP classes with just with the bare PHP editor is not an issue at all. But if you're a beginner, you might want to have a wizard to guide you exactly on how to implement interfaces or superclasses. And this additional checkbox here also will generate some code for you, like it will generate the stubs for the inherited abstracts methods, or it will generate some PHP doc blocks, a constructor, a destructor, and so on. We also have a wizard for generating getters and setters in a PHP class. So if you have private members that you want to make accessible via getter and setter, this wizard will help you to generate the necessary code. The code generation can be customized with the PHP code templates that can be added in the preference pages. And we tried to clean up a little bit the PHP preferences dialog. Here I tried to display what are the changes that we have done. For example, we moved the code refactoring preference page under the editor. We moved the composer. Composer was introduced in an earlier version of PDT 5.0, but still during the Oxygen release cycle. This is why we had it, for example, in PDT 4.3. So we move it under tools because we now also have PHPUnit, and we will collect the tools integration under this new tools preference page. The interpreter settings is now under validation because more or less it was used for validation. This is the preference page where you specify what is the PHP version that your project is based on, for example, 5.6 or 7.0, and based on this version, you get syntax validation. The libraries and path variables are now grouped in preference page called source path, and the PHP executables is now renamed as installed PHPs. You can also see the complete release notes on our wiki or in the project management website. So as you can see, we have actually 4 releases displayed here. And this is why, because during the Oxygen development cycle, which is from July 2016 until June 2017, PDT actually had 4 releases. We release every time the Eclipse Simultaneous Release has an update. So we had release for Neon.1, Neon.2, Neon.3, and now we're releasing PDT 5.0s with the Oxygen Simultaneous Release. All of these 4 releases I actually covered in this session. We have, I think, more than 250 bugs fixed during this last year. So some credits to the people involved in the PDT project. We have 6 active committers right now. I can say that the project diversity increases year over year. If we go back 4 years ago, all of the committers in the PDT project would be from Zen Technologies. And now, actually, half of the committers are individual committers. These are Thierry, Alex, and David. And the rest are from Zend. And the contributions from individual committers and from those from Zend are, I think, exactly 50-50 right now. So and this increases year over year. Last year we have 2 active committers. Now we have a 3rd active committer. This is Alex, who implemented the PHP built-in web server integration and also made some other improvements in the PHP editor. So the project diversity increases, and we'll be happy to welcome new committers and new contributors if people have interest in this. So how to get PDT, and especially 5.0? So the easiest way to do it is by downloading the Eclipse for PHP developers package. It's a ready-to-use installation of Eclipse. It includes PDT. It also includes eGit, and it also includes the JavaScript tooling. Another option is to use the Eclipse Installer. There we have an entry with, again, says Eclipse IDE for PHP developers, which should actually do the same. If you choose this option, you should actually get the same installation like the EPP package. It's also possible to extend your existing Eclipse installation via the Eclipse Marketplace. Just search for PHP there and you'll find the PHP Development Tools. And clicking the Install button will do the job. And we're also present in the Simultaneous Release repository. Again, just look for PHP in the search field and you'll see all the features that PDT provides. Last but not least, it's important to know these 2 P2 repositories. The first one always points to our latest official release. If you add it to your Eclipse IDE, you'll be notified automatically via pop-up whenever we release a new version of PDT. And we actually plan to have a very quick 5.01 release with some important bug fixes that we found during the quiet week of the Oxygen release. None of them are blockers, but still important fixes. So just add this first P2 repository in your Eclipse IDE and you'll get this maintenance release. If you want to be on the edge and follow our development, you can use this latest nightly P2 repository. You'll get an update, if not every day, a few times per week. And that's about PDT 5.0. I want to point a few more things that goes beyond PDT 5.0 and something that some of the PDT committers are working on, and maybe some of these things will be integrated with PDT. So perhaps you've heard about the language server protocol. If not, there is a webinar next week, same day, same time, about the generic editor in Eclipse and the integration with the language server protocol. So this is going to be a big change for the IDEs as a whole. And there is a PHP language server that provides PHP IntelliSense already in the open source community. It's evolving very quickly, and it's implemented in pure PHP. So the big difference that the language server protocol does is that it enables the community around a particular programming language to implement the IntelliSense in their own language. So the PHP language server provides the IntelliSense implemented in pure PHP. In PDT right now, you need to code in Java this IntelliSense, which it's hard to attract new committers. Still, we have some. But this is going to make the big change. And we have an experimental integration of this PHP language server with the Eclipse IDE. Here I have a screenshot. Oh, this is the new generic editor in Eclipse. And this is actually a code completion that's coming from the PHP language server. Here, it's not actually PDT, it's the PHP language server. So if this project, this integration of the language server protocol into Eclipse is evolve and becomes mature enough, we should not be surprised if we actually see the PHP language server to replace the Java-based IntelliSense in PDT, maybe in PDT 6.0, who knows? We'll see how much time it will take for this initiative to mature, but this is a good look into the future right now. Another thing that also worth mentioning is Eclipse Che, which is a next generation web-based IDE. And there, some of the committers in PDT worked on implementing PHP support. So currently, Eclipse Che features a PHP IntelliSense support provided by this same PHP language server. It also provides a zero configuration PHP debugging, also composer integration and PHPUnit integration. So if you want to take a look at a very nice web-based IDE and try some PHP coding in it, go on this link and you'll see instructions how to test it. I think there is a SaaS solution, software as a service, that you can register and just try it out without installing anything. So here is a screenshot of Eclipse Che running PHP. We have here some projects. We see the PHP editor. We have nice syntax coloring. We have code completion. So this is PHP running in action in Eclipse Che. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed the session. And back to you, Kat. I think we should have some questions, maybe. Are there any questions, Kat? I think you're still on mute. Okay, Kat has issues to unmute, but there also seems to be no questions.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Kaloyan, for that presentation. The feedback I was getting from some of my colleagues while watching that presentation was excitement, so we really appreciate you doing that. So as Kaloyan mentioned, we do have a few minutes now for questions and answers. So I'm going to run through a few housekeeping things. I'll give you an opportunity to comment on the YouTube live event if you have any questions, and I can read those out to Kaloyan and we can discuss them quickly. So now is the time to ask those questions. While you are thinking about some riveting questions to ask us, just a couple of reminders. So the next Eclipse Oxygen webinar will take place on Monday, June 26th. So that's next week. And the topic is Next and Xtext Core Framework Language Server Protocol Tracing Code Generators. So that's at 11 a.m. Eastern, same time as today. And it's with Sven Efting and Miro Sopenman. Also, just a quick reminder to join the Virtual Eclipse Community Meetup if you haven't already done so. We are receiving requests daily now for future topics that people want to learn about. So if there's something that you haven't seen covered in one of these webinars, please let us know. We will try to add that to our schedule for the upcoming weeks. And be sure to join our community at Virtual Eclipse and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So I'm going to mute myself just for 1 second to see if we have any questions. So it looks like there are no questions. So if you do have any questions and you watch this video and you're hoping to get a bit more information from Kaloyan or his team, feel free to email marketing@eclipse.org or follow the links, which we will add to the video description. And be sure to let us know what you thought of this session, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Thank you again, Kaloyan.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Bye-bye.